We took a list of 2,000 forgotten leads, called each and every one of them in 40 minutes, and booked $4.6 million in pipeline, all from people that this particular client had written off. And in this video, I'm going to walk through 5 lessons that we learned from running this campaign and many others just like it that you can use in your business, whether you're using AI, a human team, or doing it yourself as well. And so just to set the scene before we get into the numbers and the lessons, this is for a franchise client that has multiple different locations, and we're calling people that had previously inquired about this opportunity. So I think we're going back about 18 months, maybe 24 months of people who had inquired but didn't go ahead at that particular time. So just to be really clear, this is not AI cold calling. So one of the first things that people want to know when I talk about these sorts of things is what were the results and what were the numbers. So if we come down here, let's dig into that. So we actually did 2,000 calls in 40 minutes. All right, and if you stop and think about that for a moment, that is an absolutely insane number. And of those 2,000 people, we had 700 say, look, no, we're no longer interested in this opportunity. We're all good. We had 340 people say that yes, they still do want this opportunity, but now is not the right time. We had 92 people directly book an appointment to take the next step with the franchise team. Just to give you the context as well, each of these is worth about $50,000. And interestingly, we also had 25 more people want to book into the calendar, but they couldn't because the calendar was full. So when we do this, we actually book the appointments typically for maybe 1 to 2 weeks in advance. We try not to go beyond that unless there's a very special circumstance. And so from those 92 appointments that were booked, that actually filled up their calendar. And we could have had, if we do some quick maths on that, about another $1.25 million in pipeline unlocked directly on these calls. Now, just for context, the client can follow those up afterwards. We actually send all the results through and all the details through to them afterwards as well. So they were followed up after the campaign, but on the phone calls themselves, we could have gone from 92 to 117 booked appointments, if we do some quick maths there, directly on that call. So each of these numbers is an actual lesson, and we'll dig through those through the rest of this video as well. So the very first lesson is that timing is often the major objection here. So we do get a lot of people who say no, which is fine. It's going to happen because circumstances change. In this particular client's case, the no percentage was a bit higher than normal because it is a big decision. But after that period, or after that result, the timing, which is, yes, I still want this, but now is not the right time, is often the biggest reason that people don't go ahead with things. And so if we just do some hard numbers on this too, before I break into the lesson, this here, another 340 people that if they all go ahead and say, yes, we do want this, that's going to be another 340 times $50,000, some quick maths, $17 million in pipeline sitting in their system that people who want what they've got, but just now is not the right time. Now, of course, not all of them are going to go ahead and buy. Let's just say they get only 5%. That's another $850,000 in revenue. Now, again, let's just make it even just 1%. If only 1%, it's done $170,000 in revenue just sitting there in their system. And so where people go wrong with this, the mistake that we see business owners make time and time again is they treat a not right now as though it is a no. Now, this might be intentional, it might not be intentional. So what I mean by this is that when people say, yes, I'm still interested, but now is not the right time, that's where the conversation ends and there's no follow-up system, or the follow-up system is very generic and poor. Now, you as a business owner or your team might have every intention of following up in 3 months or 7 months or 9 months or whatever the period of time is. You put a note in the CRM, you create a task, you do whatever it is that you do. But for whatever reason, when that time comes, that follow-up gets forgotten and the follow-up gets missed. And so this is a huge, huge opportunity that we often see fall by the wayside. Is often larger than the original outreach as well, simply by not having a follow-up system in place. And so what we do with our AI is that if someone says, look, I'm interested in maybe 7 months or 9 months because I've got to, in this case, sell another business before I start this one. Maybe I need to finalize the house sale or house purchase before I join this one here as well. The AI will actually automatically book itself in to follow up in that period of time with the context of that conversation as well. So imagine in this case here, 7 months later, someone says, hey, people say I want this, but in 7 months after I sell another business. In 7 months' time, the AI is going to call them back again and say, hey, last time we spoke, you told me you had to sell this particular business before you started this one here. How's it all going? Is this still something you're interested in? So it calls back with the follow-up and with the context, which drastically increases the conversion rates and the sales over time as well. So that's the very first lesson. Make sure that when you do a reactivation, you have a follow-up system in place that actually captures all this latent opportunity as well. So the second lesson is that the small batches beat big lists. So obviously you would have noticed in the very first slide there, I talked about 25 people who wanted to book in but couldn't because the calendar got full. Now, 2,000 people might be a lot of people in your database. It might be a very small number of people. So we actually thought this was a pretty small number to call through anyway. But again, lessons learned. So basically the whole thing here is that you're better off running regular rescheduling campaigns with smaller batches than a big batch all in one go, because running 2,000 calls in 40 minutes and booking 92 appointments definitely sounds great. But what this actually means is that the sales team had to handle 92 appointments in the next week or two, right? Which is a lot of extra work that they had to handle. And also the people who booked in, because the sales team were running very busy and hectic, they actually had a few little missed opportunities too, where there was some follow-up that the team didn't do because they had so much work to do in such a short period of time. So what we recommend doing instead, and this is what we do now moving forward typically, is we run these in batches, right? So it might not be 500 a week, but whatever the smaller batch is, we run on a regular schedule. And what this allows for is it allows for more availability in your calendar, more consistency, so your team doesn't have to go through big spikes of work and big, feast and famine periods of time. And it just allows a lot more of a smoother process here as well. And it does seem a little bit counterintuitive, but smaller, more consistent batches is far more consistent or productive than a large batch all in one go. And this rule applies for human teams. Like if they can do 20, 30, 50 calls a day versus 200 in a day, that's going to be a lot more sustainable for the business as well. And this next lesson is something that most businesses don't want to hear, and that is the word no, right? So the third lesson here is that you actually want to get people to tell you no, right? It's really counterintuitive, but as a business owner, we can, until we get the dreaded no, the dreaded N word there, in our minds, we can imagine that we've got this many people in our pipeline and they're all still an active opportunity for us. So in our minds, we're thinking we have a far bigger revenue potential than we actually do. But when you translate that to reality and the real world, what that actually means is you have you or your team following up and chasing people who have got zero interest in what you've got going on in your business, right? And that's time that could be spending on your real leads and your real prospects. And so you can see here from the numbers, 700 people out of those 2,000 said, no, we are no longer interested in this particular opportunity. And a lot of business owners instantly look at that and go, oh, damn, that's a bad result. I'd rather not know that they're not interested. But think about this perspective for a moment as well. Now, just say, for example, we've gone from 2,000 to 1,300 people to follow up with. Their sales team and their team of people are now more focused on the people who are left and remaining. And they're not spreading their attention and their efforts across a wider base of people who are no longer interested. So with these reactivation campaigns, especially when you're running it through AI, we get great intelligence and great insights from the AI about what's going on for people, like who's still active, who's not, and why. And we're actually also cleaning the list for your business. And so your team can spend more time and more energy on the people who are far more likely to convert and purchase versus spending time on ghosts. And you can see from the image there as well, we've got a whole lot of different ghosts that your team's following up and chasing. And think about this as well. Not only are they wasting their time and their energy, but also their mental, not strain, but just emotional well-being can also go down as well. Because if you're constantly getting no's or, hey, follow up me later on and just run around the mill, it does affect your mentality as a business owner and also as a sales team as well. So the big thing you do want to do when you're running reactivation campaigns is you want to get the no as quick as you can. And just to give you a bit of a breakdown of what the calls are for us, what we do first is identify that we have the right person on the call. Then we immediately try to establish interest, right? Are you still interested in this or are you not interested in this? And again, when we get the no out quickly, right, we can actually then move on to the next one. That's part of how we can call so many people so quickly there as well. So we establish we have the right person. We then establish that they still have interest or not. Now, if they have interest and they're not ready to go ahead, we then go ahead and book the time for the AI to follow up in the future. If they are interested in going ahead now, we then qualify them or re-qualify them to make sure that this particular lead is a good fit for the business. Then if they're qualified, we then book them in for an appointment, or we hand it over to the human team to follow up as well. So that's just a quick little breakdown of how the calls typically go. We obviously have various different scripting, but that's an overview of the actual calls themselves. And so the fourth lesson here is that if you can't handle the volume of sales that's going to actually be generated from these campaigns, don't do it. Or, as we mentioned in the earlier lesson, do it over a smaller scale over a more consistent period of time as well. So as you saw in that very first slide, that we had 25 people who wanted to book but couldn't then and there. Now, they weren't actually lost in this case because the client could follow up with them manually afterwards. But again, the opportunity on that call was definitely lost. So the lesson here is make sure you spread these campaigns out and run them at times when you have extra capacity. So if you don't have the capacity, that's something you need to resolve before running these particular lead gen campaigns. So there's a quick little checklist here as well. And before you hit go on any sort of revenue recovery or database reactivation campaigns, you want to make sure that your sales team can handle about maybe 20 to 30% spike in appointments over the next 3 to 4 weeks. That you have available slots in the calendar. You don't have you have a backup sales rep if your main sales rep gets sick, and also that you can actually fulfill ready for new customers, ready to rock and roll. Now, if you're getting no's on some of those, it means you need to fix them first before you start running a revenue recovery or database reactivation campaign, because you'll get better ROI from that. But once you fix those solutions or those issues, then the revenue recovery, database reactivation becomes one of the most leveraged channels in your business, because you've already paid for these leads. You've done the work to get the marketing, the content, all those things there. So you've already paid for them. You might as well maximize that money that you've already spent. So you're not paying for new leads and new data. You're paying to reactivate the leads that you've already spent money on as well. And so the fifth lesson here is that reactivation is no longer just a campaign that you run every now and then. It's actually a channel that you do on a raw, regular basis. So the number that I shared earlier, 2,000 calls, 92 appointments, $4.6 million in opportunity value, I'm extremely proud of, and it's a great result. But this number that you're seeing right here is probably arguably a better number and a better result. So for this particular client, we're now running this campaign on a regular basis every single month, and it's generating about 80% of their appointments. So think about that for a moment. 80% of their appointments are being generated by just reaching out to the people in the database on a regular schedule, and also when they tell us to, and booking those appointments as well. And so this, the mindset shift that business owners should have with your reactivation campaigns is, don't think of it as something you run every quarter or just every now and then. This should become a regular channel, just like SEO or just like content or just like your paid ads as well. And so that's a big mistake we see a lot of business owners make, is they treat these reactivation campaigns like a one-time spring clean, or maybe just a semi-regular campaign that they run. And the compounding effect of this as well is that as time goes on and we're running this on a regular schedule, we then also start hitting the people who said to call back 6 months ago or 3 months ago or 9 months ago as well. And so it is a bit of I don't know if it's fully compounded, but it is a bit of a compounding effect, because we get the leads that are ready now, also in addition to the leads that were ready now that we called 6 months ago as well. So if your business does depend on inquiries, running reactivation campaigns is really, really important as well. And so just a couple of little honest comparisons here as well, because obviously, we're in the AI space, we do a lot around AI, but there are some instances where humans outperform the AI. So I wanted to give you a real, just honest comparison and breakdown of what AI is really good at versus what a human is much better at as well. So if we come over here, we've broken this out based on a few different dimensions. So we have the cost per call, hours of availability, parallel dialing, callback logic, closing, especially for high ticket sales, and then also multi-step or sensitive deals. And so the AI voice agent, when it comes to the cost per call, is going to be cents per dial. So Currently for ours, it costs about 24 cents per minute when it's on the phone. And so if there's a 5-minute conversation, it's going to cost you about $1.10 or thereabouts. But that's only if the person picks up. Now, for a human team, you're of course going to be paying $5 to $15 per dial, depending on that with their time and obviously all their associated costs. With the hours of availability, so we typically run these outbound call campaigns from maybe about 7 a.m. in the morning to 9 p.m. depending on the business. Sometimes it's 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, whatever else it is. But it's anywhere between 7 to 9 p.m. Based on the prospect's time zone. For a human team, again, you're going to probably be restricted to business hours for this. And if you have the hours like before business hours or after business hours, you'll likely need to pay for some overtime as well. But a really important thing where AI shines here, and this is something that people don't think about often, is the callbacks, because it is a small but significant percentage of people will call back a missed call. And so if your human team is making these outbound calls and then someone calls them back later on, they're either on another call or maybe they've finished for the day, that's another opportunity wasted that you've tried to generate. Now, the advantage of the AI is we actually have it set up and trained ready to handle the inbound calls, and this is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you might make a call today and someone calls back later that night, the AI is going to answer it. Could be 7 p.m., 9 p.m., 1 a.m. in the morning, whatever that looks like. It could be on the weekend. It could be any time an AI is going to answer it. So there's no restraints or constraints, I should say, for the AI being on other calls as well, because we can handle multiple calls at once. And that's, of course, the next dimension here, which is parallel dialing. So the AI can have technically hundreds of conversations at once. With our system, it starts off at 50 at a time, but we can increase it there, again, for special circumstances if required. But with a human team, they can only make one conversation or one call at one time. So a human has to get on there and wait for someone to answer or not. In the same time that a human does that, the AI has probably made a few hundred calls, right? Which, again, is absolutely a slam dunk in the favor of the AI agents. Now, the callback logic as well. So with this one, so this is when someone says, and this happens quite a lot actually, someone answers the phone, they could be driving, they could be with kids, and they say, hey, I'm actually busy right now. Can you call me back at 3 o'clock, or can you call me back in 45 minutes or tomorrow? All right, so with this, the AI, like it does with people who say they're not interested right now, but they are still interested, the AI actually reschedules itself in to call back at that time. So if they say, call me back at 3 o'clock, the AI is going to call them back at 3 o'clock. If they say, call me back next week at this day or time, whatever, even if they just say next week, the AI is going to automatically recall them back at that particular time, all on autopilot. Now, with a human, it's a little bit hit and miss. So the great human teams will absolutely call back, right? They absolutely will. But it's very, very hit and miss, and it's also CRM and capacity dependent as well. So maybe someone says, look, can you call me back in 10 minutes? And maybe they've got a whole lot of other calls they've got to get through first, so they may or may not call those people back. But there are some areas that humans shine in over when it comes to AI as well. So closing high ticket sales, or in my opinion, at least right now, closing sales in general is definitely much better handled by an actual human team, especially with these sorts of deals here that are worth $50,000 or more. Now, we're firm believers in not necessarily replacing people with AI, but using AI where AI shines and using people where people shine, right? So we're not trying to overlap boundaries. So with AI, it is not good at closing calls or closing sales right now, especially high ticket. But what it is really good at is repetitive calls at scale, which is where these reactivation campaigns really, really shine. Now, the other one here is the multi-step or really sensitive deals. So this is for like complex or complicated sales requirements. And so again, in this case here, a human's going to know and understand things a lot more in detail. So a human should take over and handle the actual sale if this is the case. Now, again, we use AI where it shines and not where it doesn't. So as I mentioned in the call earlier, the breakdown of how the calls actually work is we just try to establish interest, right? Are they still interested in the product or service? We then qualify and we hand it off to the humans so they can handle that at scale. So for most businesses, it's booking an appointment into a calendar, but for some, it's just sending an email or an SMS or a notification through to the human team that they can actually follow up with this particular lead as well. And so let's actually just recap what those lessons are and all these elements, and then we'll go through and look at next steps that you can use in your business as well. So the very first lesson is that timing is often the only objection. So build follow-up into your systems, right? So whether it's reactivations or revenue recoveries, you want to make sure you're following up with people. The number two is that small batches consistently beat big lists in spikes, right? So this will be a lot more sustainable over the long term versus being very, very spiky in terms of results. Now, if you do need cash fast or you do need some sales fast, by all means, you can really ramp it up. But generally speaking, you want to be smaller batches consistently beats big batches inconsistently. The third thing, which is very counterintuitive, is to get the no early on the call. And then this gives you the opportunity to really clean your list so you can really focus your team's energy on the ones who are far more likely to convert. The fourth lesson is to make sure you solve capacity before you generate this demand. And so what this just basically means is make sure you have people who have availability in their calendars. Your sales team can handle it, your delivery team can handle it as well. Because if you can't do that, make sure you resolve that first before running these campaigns. And the fifth lesson is that when this is working and you've got it dialed in, do this on a regular monthly schedule or cadence and treat it like another marketing channel, not just an individual campaign as well. And so, look, like these 5 lessons will work whether you build this yourself, whether you hire a BDM team or use an AI system just like ours as well. But that's the case. But what I'll tell you about how this usually plays out is the fact that many businesses will watch a video just like this. They'll nod along in agreement, say, yep, that all makes sense, and I'd love to do this. But then a week or 2 or 3 weeks later, your list and your database is still sitting there with nothing happening, nothing's changed, and the leads that you have on your database are still sitting there waiting to give you their money, but you've done nothing to actually facilitate that. So, the franchise client that I've referenced in this call, in this video, did the exact opposite, right? They acted. They knew that they had opportunities sitting in their database. And now, as a result, 80% of their appointments are being generated by this particular AI system as well. This is not from paid ads, not from content, not from referrals. This is from people that have already generated demand from in their database as well. So, if you'd like to know what a reactivation campaign would look like in your business, I'd highly recommend to go ahead and book a call with us. What we'll do is I'll actually jump on the call with you right now, especially at the moment, and we'll go through and look at the actual numbers, right, and see, okay, how many dormant leads do you actually have on your database? What's the real opportunity value worth for you? Because it may be a lot more or a lot less than what you're thinking. And we'll look and see whether it's actually going to make sense for you to run in your business as well. And look, whether you use us to do this or not is completely up to you. At least you'll know the numbers and the potential. And then the map will be yours either way as well. So if you are interested in learning this about how we can implement this in your business, click the link somewhere around this video and don't waste the past opportunities that you're actually sitting on. They're often the warmest leads you're ever going to have as well. So with that, I hope you got a lot out of this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.